Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Measured Tones Institute of Quran Facebook page and YouTube channel, or should I say YouTube channel and Facebook page, whatever. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, as-salatu as-salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilman wa 'amalan mutaqabbalan ya arhamar rahimin. As you can see from the title, this video is going to be about three very important aspects of the science of Tajweed, which are the definition of Tajweed, the history of Tajweed, and the ruling of Tajweed. Why did I feel like this was important to cover? Well, I feel like if we're going to dedicate ourselves to something, that we should know what it is that we're studying. No more than just, just the technical aspects of, actually learning the rules and different things like that. But to actually know, something about the history of it, actually know what the word means itself. So somebody comes to you and says, "You're studying what?" You say Tajweed. It's like, what's that? You can actually give them an actual definition and say, this is exactly what it is. It also helps with, misconceptions. A lot of people think they know what Tajweed means and what it entails, when in reality I found in many cases that they don't. And I don't say that in like a very condescending, demeaning type of way. I just mean just the reality of the situation. And obviously the ruling of Tajweed is important. So it's important to know whether or not what you're doing is wajib, sunnah, mubah, this, that, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be covering all that briefly in this video. I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible, inshallah ta'ala. So the very first thing is the definition of Tajweed. I did make a video about it before on the Facebook. It was the screen recording and so on and so forth. But let me briefly re-explain what it is here for those of you who may not have Facebook pages, so you can't access the videos. So quickly, the definition of Tajweed. You have the technical definition, you have the literal definition. The literal definition of Tajweed is to improve or to make better. That's all it is, to make something better, to improve it. Obviously, with regards to the science itself, we're trying to improve our recitation of Quran, so it's still very appropriate for that. However, the technical definition of Tajweed, what it really actually means in the science itself, is to give each and every letter its right with regards to two things: the pronunciation of each and every letter and the characteristics of each and every letter. That is absolutely critical to understand that we're paying attention to each and every letter. Examples of pronunciation. Let's say pronunciation, saying kala instead of qala, for instance. Somebody saying alhamdu instead of alhamdu, right? Abudu instead of a'budu, right? Things like that. These are all pronunciation mistakes, right? Mixing up the ha with the ha and so on and so forth, right? So these are all pronunciation mistakes. Examples of, let's say, characteristics. The jim. Very common mistake that a lot of people make is pronouncing the jim as j, right? Got to remind people sometimes that this is Arabic, not French. Je m'appelle. Anyway. So it's jim, not jim. So not waja'a min aqsa al-Madina might sound romantic to you, but it's wrong, right? Waja'a, jim, ja, ji, ju, right? This is a characteristic, right? The lad has a natural stretching sort of characteristic to it when we say lad. So lad, that has a natural sort of stretch to it. When we stop on it, we say el. These are characteristics. So we're paying attention to each of these little characteristics that the letters have, as well as their pronunciation. This is very important. So that's the definition of Tajweed for you in a nutshell. Actually, that was a lot of information. Sorry. So anyway, history of Tajweed. The spread of Islam brought about the need for the systematization of Tajweed. What do I mean by that? Turning it into an actual whole science with labels and titles and this and that and so on and so forth. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they obviously had Tajweed. However, they didn't have this ikhfa, idgham, idhar, iqlab, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. However, they did apply all of these same rules, right? So as Islam spread outside of the Arabian Peninsula, the need for this systematization of it grew greatly. People that did not speak Arabic, and Arabic was not their first language, they had difficulty pronouncing the ayn and the dad and this and that and kha and so on and so forth. So they needed something, a system or something to help them be able to practice these things and also keep the idghams and the meds and this and that. These are things that people just weren't familiar with. So that is the history of Tajweed. So understand it does go all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ, from Jibreel, from Allah, being revealed the way that we recite it now. So practice was always there. However, theory is something that came later. Remember that. All right, last and final thing is the ruling of Tajweed. So the ruling of Tajweed, no matter how you look at it, it is most definitely obligatory. It is wajib, it is fard for everyone. Now, the good news for Muslims is that it is not obligatory for us all to become masters of Tajweed. However, it is expected and it is obligatory for us to, at the very least, study the recitation, the proper recitation of whatever surahs we have memorized. At the very least, in whatever surahs we plan to memorize in the future, we should learn them with the proper tajweed. So that means practice. The actual practice of tajweed is something that is considered obligatory, whereas it's an individual obligation. I mean, everyone has to do that at the very least. When it comes to learning the actual theoretical part of tajweed, like learning that this is called idgham, this is ikhfa, this is idhar, so on and so forth, all these names and titles, that part of it is something that is considered fard kifaya, or a collective obligation, which means that as long as somebody is studying it, it relieves the obligation off of everyone else. But if absolutely nobody does it, we're all at fault for that. Somebody has to preserve the science of tajweed. We can't let it die out. If you can, however, if you have the capability, you should not say to yourself, well, I know plenty of people that study tajweed theory, so I don't have to do it. If you can, and you perhaps are natural at it, you have a good memory, and you just understand concepts very easily, and you can work towards mastery of it, why not, right? I mean, just go for it and teach people and spread that. Why not, right? So, inshallah, those are the 3 things that we wanted to discuss in this video. Definition, history, ruling. So, by studying tajweed, you are fulfilling an obligation. It is not voluntary. Remember that. Please stay tuned and look out for the future videos very soon, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, so without further ado, we can end this video. Doesn't make sense. Okay, what should I say right now? How do I end this video? Okay, so, and that's weird. Okay, so that's that.